Hello, my name is Bryan. You're watching Game Brigade, and today we're going to be diving into First in Flight by Genius Games. If you're interested in my overview, please stay tuned for a full breakdown of how the game plays, as well as my final thoughts in terms of what I liked and didn't like. Welcome to the turn of the 19th century, where aspiring pilots are attempting to lift the first heavier-than-air aircraft into the air. And that is where Genius Games sets us with First in Flight, where players are going to be taking on this deck-building game, a push-your-luck deck-building game with asymmetrical powers to be the first one to fly the furthest and be considered the first in flight. So welcome, join me here at the table as we go over the setup and then the overview. Place the game board in the center of the table with a marker indicating year one. Place the flyers at the start of the flight record track and randomly place the pawns in the starting spaces. Separate and shuffle the three development decks of friend, technology, and skill cards. Place these decks to the side of the board and draw the face-up options for the first year. 2 friend cards, 2 technology cards, and 4 skill cards. You will place the supplies of flight cards near the game board. You'll place the glide, experience, and basic flyer cards face up. You will shuffle the upgrade cards number 2 to 5 to form the face down upgrade deck. And then shuffle the design flaw cards with the 2 problems in the corner to form the face down design flaw deck. Each player forms a starting deck of 9 cards. 4 glide, 1 experience, 2 basic flyer problems, and 2 randomly drawn design flaws. Without looking at design flaws, shuffle these 9 cards together. Players will select a pilot card equal to the number of players plus 1. First in Flight is a push-your-luck deck-building game about the race to early flight. Players will take on the roles of early flight pioneers, race in the build and pilot the flyers, preceded modern airplanes. Okay, so First in Flight is a fairly simple, lightweight game. So we're going to talk about the player board here as we have our action selections, and then we'll also talk about the player deck in terms of the deck building process, because they are very much hand in hand in this game. Players will have asymmetrical pilots. These pilots have a wide range of powers that give you a different kind of goal that might want to, help you guide you through your strategy. Here in the center of the board is our player board, which is the action selection. And in this way, players will be making decisions on what they seem to be most valuable for them to go forward. And the way this works is whoever is the furthest in the back will take the action going somewhere on the board. There is no limit in how far you can go in terms of the selection, but remember, the further you go, the less likely you are to take another turn anytime soon. Let's give an example. Here we have the gray player who wants to take his turn, and they decide they want to repair something. So they'll go to the repair action. Now it'll be the red player's turn because he is behind in the action selection. He could go to the upgrade selection and choose to upgrade. Then it'll be the blue player. Blue player will go here to the upgrade selection as well. Now, looking at the order, all 3 players have taken a turn, but because the red player is in the back, they will take the next action, which in this case would be flight. So that is how the action selection works in terms of the player orders. Whoever is the furthest behind will take the next available action. And this does create an interesting dynamic between the players, because you're going to want to make sure you're selecting what's best for you, but you also don't want to go too far ahead where you're going to be losing your action abilities to take additional turns. Let's talk about what each one of these does. Here we have the upgrade selection, which can either be paid with money and or time. Time is represented by these clocks. If a player chooses to spend time, they will move forward along the zone. With the time selections, it works the same exact way as moving forward of these in terms of the placement of your next action. So for example, if I was here and I decided to spend 2 time, I would move my pawn to the 2 time slot here on the map, and then anyone else, we would follow the same rules. This card allows us to add these cards randomly to our deck. We look at the top 2, or depending on what X is. X is a number, the variable amount, and then you'll take 2 into your hand. For example, I would take a 3 and a 5. These are cards that will be assisting us in flying further when we choose to fly. But because of that, we might add a problem to our deck. Sometimes, with innovation comes some sort of problem. So we'll be adding a problem to our deck, and those cards will be added to our deck. The next available selection is the upgrades here, where we can choose either friends or static abilities to be part of our garage. These are going to be abilities that are going to be given us once per flight or all the time when our flights. So it's a static ability. It's going to be helping us further along. A repair is an action where if you fly and you have identified one of these major problems, you will actually pull it out to the side. If you then repair, you can take this, discard it, collect whatever reward is on that card, and then you're going to add a basic flight problem to your deck in replacement of it. So you're making your deck a little better with the upgrade action. The fly action is the meat of the game. It's going to actually be us flying, and let's kind of explain how that works in detail. Flying is the core meat of this experience. It's what you're building your deck for. It's what you're going to try to win the game with. By flying, we are going to be revealing cards from our deck one at a time. If we reveal 4 of these, I call them bullet holes, whatever you want to call them, they're little bullet hole looking things. If you reveal 4 of those, you are crashed, and then you have to stop your flight, and obviously that's not good because you're also going to lose a bit of time as you recover. So how does flying work? We have our deck here, and we're going to reveal cards one at a time. So as you're doing so, you're going to keep track of any bullet holes you marked. So right here, I've received 1 bullet hole, and we keep going. And then at some point, we're going to choose to stop flying. So if I want to stop here, I'm going to reveal the descend card. The descend card says that we're going to choose to now land our airplane. We draw 2 more cards from the top of the deck, reveal them. If we are underneath 4 bullet holes, we've landed successfully. We count our distance, depending if we successfully landed or not, and then we'll record that along the track. So, for example, this one, we flew 1, 2, 3. We successfully landed, so we're now at 5, so 8, 9, 10, and our plane is landing here on the 10 slot. The distance is very important because there are certain pilots that have different types of distances they want to go. For example, the Wright Brothers, they get money every time they break their personal goal. So maybe for them, it's beneficial to just land immediately, set a low personal goal so that you're constantly getting money every time you fly. You also, though, have a benefit of hitting the 15 mark. Once your plane has glided for 15 steps, you are now considered famous. People around the world are taking note of your accomplishments. And by doing so, anytime you go to a location that has a discount, which is indicated by a little star, which you probably cannot see on the board right now with the camera view, but that will give you a coin discount in terms of purchasing that action. So that is the flight. That is the core mechanic of the game. Let's go ahead and keep going through the rest of the actions, and then we'll finalize with my thoughts. Here we have the Any location. The Any tab basically says we can choose any location that we can take on the board. We just have to pay a $1 premium for it. Here is the $5 available action. This one just gives us $5. Here we're going to get one of these stunt cards. These stunt cards are mitigation for your deck as you're playing. So as I said, this is a push your luck. The further you want to go down into your deck as you're revealing more cards, there is a bigger possibility that you're going to run into flight problems. This push your luck aspect means that you are encouraged to go further, but to help mitigate that, you have these cards here that might let you look at the top cards, maybe reorganize them, send some to the bottom, put some in your hand. So these are ways for you to maximize and go a little further with your plane. Here we have the experience card. This is right here in the middle of the board. This is going to be adding more of these basic 1 distance cards. So basically adding cards to your hand to basically help add more cards to reduce the amount of negative problems you're going to have. And that is it. That is the basics of, sorry about that. That is the basics of the game. Players are going to be moving along, taking actions. Now, I should mention this. You cannot take another action if another player is on it. So just like most worker placements, someone is blocking a spot, you cannot take it. So that is important to know as you come around. And as you come to the end here, the player who is last, if there's no other locations, they're going to take one of the positions here. They can take the first position or they can take the last position. Usually they'll take the first position so that way they go first, and then the other players will follow behind them and take their appropriate positions. So that is First in Flight. Hopefully this overview was helpful for you to understand the basic concepts of the game and what we're going to look at. Let's talk about what I liked and didn't like about this game to help you make your best decision while backing this game. So First in Flight is brought to us by Ben Rosa and Matthew O'Malley, and they make two games that I know. One of them is very fun, and it's Search for Planet X. I very much enjoy that game. I think these guys make brilliant games, and I think First in Flight is going to be another one of those games that's very well placed in the niche that it fills. This is a great early lightweight worker placement deck building game with some push your luck mechanics. I really think that if you are introducing people to the deck building mechanic, the way this plays, the way it integrates the theme so beautifully, this is going to be a good little pickup. What I really like, and I mentioned it just now, was how well the theme is integrated into the game. You really do feel like you're understanding the way the plane flies. You get the idea of like you're kind of struggling to go further. And as you progress and you learn more, you get better technologies, your plane is able to fly a little further. So I really do like the way that works. And I also like the way there's mitigation in the deck basically on how you're going to want to complete your overall objective in terms of how are you going to get to your furthest flight. You have different types of mitigations that you can kind of customize your player for. As I said, the game is asymmetrical, so every pilot has their own skill. I also like that because it gives players that additional type of nudge in terms of how does this pilot want to fly their plane? How do they want to accomplish the goal of being the furthest to fly? Some of them might want to be taking very long flights as far as they can the first run and then try to upgrade and get further by using the repair action. As I mentioned, the Wright Brothers, they want to kind of go a lot of flights in a row, but kind of incrementally get better and better because they're getting more wealthy as they're doing that. There's a whole bunch of different pilots that do a bunch of different abilities. Now, I should note that this is obviously a prototype. Everything in this game could change. The rule book is obviously in motion and changing constantly. So the game that I'm playing right now will be a lot different from the game that is developed and produced for Kickstarter and eventually seen, because they're kind of going through some things. But right now what we have here I think is a very, very solid experience. I do want to talk about some of the things that I didn't care for, which aren't a lot. I think I should make sure I note that. The things that I didn't care for might have been just based on the player interactions that we did. I played this game in a 2-player setting, so I should make sure I note that from the upfront because I don't know if that changes the way the game plays. I would suspect at 3 and 4 human players that the game is a little bit more dynamic because these action selections are a lot more valuable and they're taken in terms of more thought. The 2-player variant requires still 3 players, but with the AI taking control of the 3rd player, and that player is very predictable in terms of what they're going to do, so you can plan around them. So again, my complaints are skewed to that area. So the first thing I want to note is that the game ended too soon. Down here is the round tracker. This is where you track how many years you've gone. You have a maximum of 4 years you can take attempts before you can hit this 36, or in terms of reaching this 36 goal marker. We ended every game we played in year 3. And that was usually about midway through year 3, usually around one of these 2 flights, a player would fly and hit either 36 plus distance. And that means once a player hits that, every player gets an opportunity to make the same attempt to see if they can also reach that at that exact point. But it felt like, it was so quick, in terms of ending it. And I wanted to play more. I always wanted to keep going, keep playing. I wanted to see how far I can go, keep refining my deck. So having the game end by year 3 consistently for us, every single game we played was interesting. So I don't know if that's because we played the 2-player variant with the AI or not. The other issue that we ran into, and again, this might be my player group in terms of how they're min-maxing their characters, but the asymmetrical pilots, some of them felt more advanced or better than some of the other ones. We'd read some of them like the Wright Brothers, and you'd be like, yeah, that's a good pilot ability. It's fair. It doesn't seem like it breaks the game anyway. But there's other pilots that you look at and you'll go, man, that is a very powerful ability that you could easily manipulate. For example, it's actually, Yeah, Glenn Curtis, the character I have, is when you gain a new card, one of these, after setup, you put them directly in your garage so that you can repair them immediately instead of having to go into your flight deck and you have to discover them when you're flying. And then when you do that, you gain 2 regular flights to your deck as well when you take that action. So not only are you getting more cards to reduce the amount of negative interactions you're going to hit, you're going to have very minimal of these double impact ones in your deck because you're identifying them very early. So I felt like that was a very powerful ability. It felt more skewed and more easily manipulatable than other characters in the game. So I'm not sure if they're planning on refining these characters anyway, but it is something that I did take note of, and it definitely made it harder or easier for some people to fly further faster. So just be aware of that. Overall, though, my rating for First in Flight is very good, and I would give it a 3.5 to 4-star rating, kind of in that between area. My question is, how many times will I be able to break this out? It seems very quick in terms of player interactions. We were able to play these games about 40 minutes to an hour, but usually about 45 minutes, which is great because we were able to bang out a bunch of games in a row. And that's the kind of experience I like, especially when I'm trying to teach people mechanics in terms of how do you do deck building games. How do you want to manipulate your deck? How do you want to add different ways to add mitigation? It's really good to be able to have games that are fun, engaging, and also quick turnaround. So I put it at 3.5 to 4-star out of 5 ratings. Definitely would recommend. So that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review of First in Flight by Genius Games. This should be live on Kickstarter by the time this video goes up. So let me know in the comment section if you're going to be backing this game, or if you have any questions. Maybe I can forward them along to the developers for you. Let me know down below. I'm always here to help. This is Bryan from Game Brigade. Remember to hit the like button if you want to support the channel. Subscribe if you're new. We'd love to have you join the community. Check out the Discord down below if you want to join us. We have a lot of great conversations. And if you want to support what I do here on YouTube, we have a Patreon down below. Even $1 is greatly appreciated. Help me buy a coffee. Thank you guys. I will talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye.